and I went around a corner and I just froze. And I'm like, something's watching me, something's looking at me. And I look below my feet just to make sure I'm not going to step on anything. And I can't see anything, but I'm like, I know something's watching me. I just felt it. And I took one step forward.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. My guest today is a friend, and the last time I saw her, she drove me home after a dinner. And she is an author, she is an educator, she is a holistic coach, and she is doing something new that we're going to talk about. I haven't seen her for a long time. I have missed you. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Susan Treadgold.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. I've missed you too. I'm sorry I'm going to miss you in Europe in a couple of weeks.
You'll
But
just have to come to Cyprus.
oh, is that an invitation?
Kind of. I'm always a bit worried.
I might just take you up on that.
Yes, because, well, not in the summer. Never come to Cyprus in the summer. It's so hot.
I've been to Crete, actually.
Yeah, even Crete is cooler because we are further down in the Eastern Med. We're really literally like 20 minutes away from Beirut and 40 minutes away from Tel Aviv by plane.
Right.
Geographically, we're part of the Middle East. I mean, I'm saying that, of course, we have lots of people coming here in the summer, but it really is hot and humid. And I have the feeling that this is going to be one of the hottest summers I will ever experience because it's only June and we've already had a heat wave.
Right. Okay. Well, note
How
to
is
self,
Los Angeles?
no Cyprus in the summer.
Let's talk about you. This is about you, not the heat in Cyprus. You go to France every year. Why? How did that happen? How do you travel to go to Europe every year, but you are based in France when you go to Europe?
Right. Well, it's funny how things happen because I was working at Merrill Lynch in investment banking, and and then I got a job at Citigroup. And back then they had something called like sort of they called it gardening leave in England. I was working in London, and they called it gardening leave. And it was like a non-compete. After you left one bank, you couldn't compete for 3 months, as if all of your clients were going to forget you during that time. I don't know what the point was, but anyway, it was 3 months, and people would call it gardening leave, and you'd go off and do some of the things that you always wanted to do without the stress of knowing that you had to look for a job because you knew you were going to one. And one of the things I'd always wanted to do was learn French. So I booked myself on a French course in Perpignan, which is where all of the ambassadors go to learn French if they're going to be, going to France. And as luck would have it, I missed my flight to Perpignan. And they put me on the next closest place, which was Carcassonne. And then I bumped into a friend on the airplane and said, "Oh, we just bought a house in Carcassonne. You must come for lunch and we'll take you to the train station to Perpignan later." And as an American, the only place I'd ever been in France was Paris or the French Riviera. And so I saw this new area of France and I just fell in love with it. And I had been planning to make a small investment in a studio flat in London. And instead, in the afternoons after my French lessons were over, I started looking for a property there, and I could see that it was kind of an undiscovered part of France, and you could get an entire house there for the same price as a studio flat in London. So that was in 2000, and now it's 24 years later. So I feel like I have a whole other identity, and friends, and in the rural countryside outside of Carcassonne. Carcassonne was the largest medieval walled city that's still in operation. It's like where Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, was filmed, and where Churchill had his honeymoon. And it's quite a really interesting place with lots of history. So I love it there.
Beautiful. And how is your French?
Comme ci, comme ça. It's I can hold a conversation, after all of this time. Pas de problème.
I am
Je
actually
suis
impressed.
un...
And I've learned something today. I did not know that Perpignan is supposedly the French with the best, because it would be the French with the best accent, the clearest, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In
And
Germany they say it's Hanover. My mother
Hamburg.
tongue, my
Yeah.
mother tongue is German, and that's what they say, because when I open my mouth as a Swiss, every German knows after one word that I'm Swiss because I have an Swiss accent.
Schweizerdeutsch.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So that's interesting. Perpignan, very nice. So do you rent your house when you are not in there yourself?
Yes, yes, yes. It's on Airbnb.
It's on Airbnb. So if
Yeah.
somebody's listening and wants to go on holidays to Perpignan, you can
Oh no, this is Carcassonne.
in
Carcassonne.
Carcassonne. Sorry, in
Yes.
Carcassonne. Well,
Yeah.
France, it's get in touch with Susan. We've already done a deal, and we're
Look at
only
this.
we're only 7 minutes into.
Airbnb with Elizabeth. Yeah.
Tell me, you worked in London. That's another thing that I wanted to ask you. Did you choose to go to London, or were you asked by your company to move to London?
Neither really. I was working at a little boutique investment bank in New York called Donaldson, Lufkin and Jenrette. I actually just went to our like 30th year anniversary. It ended up getting bought out by Credit Suisse, but while I was there, I got an invitation. I got a job offer at Morgan Stanley. They were looking for a German auto analyst. They wanted someone who spoke German because back then, the market was really kind of inefficient, and they would have the German meetings. They would have the analyst meetings, like the results announcements, et cetera. They would have them in German first and in English an hour later. So you had an hour head start on the stock market if you could speak German. So I ended up being the only female and only non-German attending a lot of these meetings. So yeah, that's how I went to. It was just out of the blue.
Amazing. Did you enjoy being in London? Did you like London, or do you like
Yeah,
London?
I even married an Englishman for my sins. I had 23 years in London. Yeah.
Amazing. And I have to tell you another thing. I mean, this episode is full of surprises. I did not know that you speak German.
Ja, ich spreche Deutsch. Ich habe ein Jahr in Freiburg studiert. Yes, I studied in Germany in 1 year in Freiburg.
That's amazing. My goodness, you definitely are full of surprises. Now,
Mhm.
we met in Los Angeles, and we met because of the Global Woman Club and because of our friend Micaela Passeri. We're going to shout out to Micaela because she was an episode guest here a while ago. It's been a year or so.
Yes, I love Michaela.
I do too. And you are living in a very nice part, from what I understand. You are living in San Diego.
Yes, yes, I love San Diego.
I have always thought, because I did a lot of tours in the US when I was a tour guide, and I have always thought, if there is one, if I was to live in the US, it would be in San Diego. I think it's the best climate as well.
Yeah, kind of 70 and sunny every day.
Yes, all
Yeah,
year
it's good.
through.
It's very, very, very different to London, but yeah,
So
it's great.
let's talk about, I mean, you're already full of travel here because you speak German, you speak French, you have a house in France, you live in San Diego, you worked in New York, and you worked in London. And what else did you do? Did you like traveling, Susan?
I love traveling. And when I was a junior if I think about this is the most memorable journey. That's
That's
the
what
name
it's
of your
called.
podcast.
Yes.
It was, I got to do a lot of traveling when I did a junior year abroad. That's what the Americans say. I think a lot of the British will sometimes do a gap year, but
Hmm.
most Americans don't do gap years, but they do their junior year abroad. And so I studied my junior year abroad in Germany, in Freiburg, and they had huge spring breaks, like 2 months. And so of all things, and back then there was no mobile phones. I decided that I was going to go backpacking in Egypt with my girlfriend. right? And we were going to meet our boyfriends later, like in the third week. But we basically went backpacking in Egypt for 4 weeks, sent that postcard off to my parents. By the way, we're in Egypt for the next month, probably gave them a complete heart attack. But it was the most fantastic adventure of my life, you know, from, and it was the complete, ignorance is bliss sometimes. If I knew then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done it. But, with some sort of ignorance like that, it is bliss. You have a lot of courage and I don't know, self-belief. And we just had that sort of confidence that it was all figure outable. And I think they had this series of books back then called Let's Go Egypt, Let's Go Europe, Let's Go Spain, and there were like these books that had all sorts of input from people who had traveled to these places and all their top local tips. And that was like our little Bible. And we arrived in Luxor, and we needed to get into town, and we were haggling with the taxi driver how much it was going to cost us to get into town with our backpacks. And some tour guide who was picking up two stranded tourists was very amused with us and said, oh, come on, I'll take you on a ride into town. And then he asked us what our plans are. And we said, oh, we're going to take a sailboat down the Nile. A felucca is what it was called. And he's like, no, 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 not safe for a woman, not safe for a woman. No, 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 no. I have a friend. I know a friend. And he introduced us the next evening to the captain of an Austrian cruise liner that was going down the Nile. And they had like, well, we have one room left on the cruise liner. And like, yeah. And so we don't have any money for that. And he's like, how much do you have? And like, we looked at our budget and we think, well, we'll really push the boat out. And we said $100. And so the two of us got on this Austrian luxury cruise liner for 3 days. We had nothing with us, Elizabeth. It was so funny. We were students. The only dressy thing we had were like these crinkly long black skirts and some like white linen tops. And, we had to kind of, reuse that a bit. But we stopped everywhere going down the Nile. We got down all the way down to where the Aswan Dam was. And there was this incredible temple there called Abu Simbel. And, with these amazing statues. But what was so fascinating is that it was the engineering and architecture was so amazing. I mean, I don't know if it was aliens or who worked it out, but they were so sophisticated back then that when they built it, they had it angled just so that on the birthday of the emperor, the light would go all the way through the temple, all the way to the very end and illuminate the golden statue. And so it was so incredible. And then we went back up to the north and went to Alexandria. We flew into Cairo and went to Alexandria. And it was just the beginning of Ramadan. And so we were the only ones staying in this hotel and having these adventures. And the hotel owner took us everywhere. And we were invited to Ramadan breakfast every night, which was at 6 p.m. when the sun went down. And it was like an orgy of food. I had my first experience of eating cow's tongue. And then they took us to their place in Cairo, and we got to experience Cairo. And then they took us to the bus station, and we went over to the Sinai Peninsula and went down to a little deserted area called Dahab and went snorkeling. Oh, before I went that, we went into the pyramids. I forgot to say when we were in Cairo before that, we went outside of Cairo and we went to see the pyramids, and we did something that you can't do anymore. And this is funny. We had these guides. They were showing us all around Cairo, and then we'll go to the pyramids. And they're like, we want to go inside. And I had this romantic notion of like getting inside and you would see a mummy and there would be all this amazing stuff on the inside. Elizabeth, I'm still getting heart palpitations starting to even think about what happened. Meanwhile, it's like 100 degrees outside. And we're like, oh, we want to go inside. And he's like, okay. I'm like, you're coming with us, right? He's like, no, no, no. You guys go. You guys go. We get in there and it is a 60-degree incline. There's just a rope going up this incline. It's only 3 feet tall. So you're crouched down and there are people, we're going up, pulling up the rope, and there are people coming down. And it's just, I don't know, maybe 2.5 feet wide max. We start going up, and halfway down, we have these people like moaning in German, saying they're going to have a heart attack. And there's people behind you. You can't turn around. You're thinking, oh my gosh, if one of these people fall and have a heart attack, it's going to be like a dominoes and we're all going to be stacked inside this thing. And anyway, we get to the top and it is an airless, obviously windowless little enclosure. Maybe it was like 6 feet tall and maybe 10 feet. And there was nothing in there. It was just an empty epicenter of the pyramid with nothing there. And I had the first panic attack of my life. And I thought, I can't breathe. It is so hot. It's like 140 degrees in here. We had no water. We didn't think to bring anything with us. And my friend is trying to calm me down. And I'm like, I can't breathe. and I'm just having a complete panic attack. And the only thing I had to look forward to, and my legs were shot. It took us 45 minutes to get to the back. So my legs were flexed the whole time. And the only thing I had to look forward to was going down again and trying not to faint. Anyway, I was so cross with that guide. I mean, how did you not tell us? So there were no hieroglyphics.
You wouldn't have listened because
Yeah,
this is what we
true.
do. This is
Yeah.
so amazing. I was listening to you because I've done all that. I used to do tours in Egypt when I was a tour guide, and I used to go on those boats like you with the Austrian tour group. I was the Swiss tour group, so those trips are beautiful, beautiful, and we were very lucky. And I'm sure you were still the best looking passengers, even though you didn't have a lot of clothes, because
Oh,
they
that's
were
very
young and
kind.
beautiful. But I want to say something to this because you're saying that you were innocent, and if you knew what you know today, you probably wouldn't have done it.
But I
Don't you?
don't regret it.
Well, exactly. And don't you think, I believe, and I don't know if you agree, we know too much with all the internet and all the information that we have available. We don't need to know everything. And exactly that has been lost, this innocence that we had as young people, because we were just trying. And if you don't try, and this is what you and I teach, we're coaches, we tell people, feel the fear and do it anyway. But many people don't anymore because they are conditioned by the media or by the internet, well, which is also media. What do you think?
Yeah, and there's like such, I actually when I think about, because I probably maybe even the high point of that Egypt trip was climbing Mount Sinai. I just the things that I did, I would not be happy if my kids did them, but I'm thinking, but wow, it was, how could I deprive them of such an experience? But so much is known. But like when we didn't even know when we climbed Mount Sinai, we met up with our boyfriends. We're dropped off in the middle of the desert, St. Catherine's Monastery, and you have to
Beautiful.
start your ascent during the day. It was like a very steep incline. It's like almost like something out of if you look at like a really tall, pointed, jagged mountain out of like Disney or something, and it's just there were two ways to climb Mount Sinai. There were the 3,000 steps of repentance, which were, put into the rocks. And then there was just like the circular winding your way up this super steep path. And there was no guardrails. It was all rocks. Sometimes you'd be like clambering with your hands and feet, and rocks would be falling, and you could be so far down you would never even hear them land. And it took us about 6 hours, but the four of us, we started with this two bottles of water. No, one bottle of water. One person carried a liter of water. One person carried a pup tent, and two of us carried sleeping bags. And we got to the top. It was the middle of it, and it was the middle of the desert. It's the top, and it's snowing at the top. And we had started in 140 degrees weather. We only had t-shirts and shorts. We were freezing. We made that pup tent so fast. And we put one sleeping bag on the bottom, and the four of us inside the two-person pup tent. It was spoon to the left and then spoon to the right. And we were just trying to keep each other, we're trying not to
Alive.
die of frostbite. And waking up in the morning and going out and looking and being able to see all the way to the Sudan and the view, my gosh, it was incredible. And then we took the 3,000 steps of repentance down, and we were terrified because they have all these uniquely indigenous species on the Sinai Peninsula, and they have this really poisonous snake, and apparently it's there, and you can find them on the steps. And if you get bitten, you need to like sever off that limb within 3 minutes or you die. And so we were figuring they might be sunning themselves in the morning. So as we were going down, and the steps were like varying degrees, like one step might be 3 feet tall, and the next foot 1, and then the next 2. And so anyway, at one point I was leading, and I went around a corner, and I just froze. And I'm like, something's watching me. Something's looking at me. And I look below my feet just to make sure I'm not going to step on anything. And I can't see anything, but I'm like, I know something's watching me. I just felt it. And I took one step forward, and this like iguana like shot out right in front of me. It was just to the side of the path, and I screamed bloody murder. And then all 3 of my friends behind me screamed bloody murder, and they're running, thinking they're going to have to sever a limb off of me that I've stepped on a.
Oh my
But
God.
thankfully that wasn't the case. Yeah.
Amazing.
So great
So,
adventure.
it really is. That is definitely what you've been talking about now, is definitely a most memorable journey. And it's a journey that you all talked about for the rest of your life because you were innocent, and that made it beautiful. And I think, we shouldn't worry too much about our kids. Your kids are younger than mine, but let them go. I mean, my daughter spent a month in Iran, and my son is studying in China, and you shouldn't stop them, because what you did and what I did made us the people we are, and we like ourselves, don't we?
Absolutely. And, you have all these preconceived notions, but people are people. Like generally, wherever you go, there's good people, there's bad people,
Absolutely.
but, you kind of figure it out. You sense it,
Yes.
right?
And you always hope for the best, instead
Right.
of thinking that this and this and this may happen, because you may attract it if you do that.
And I have to say, I can't say that I've had greater hospitality anywhere in the world than I did in Egypt. People were so hospitable and so kind everywhere we would go, offering us, figs and mint tea and inviting us into their homes. And
Mm-hmm.
it was incredible. Who would do that here? Like, imagine that an Egyptian arrived next door, like, come inside. I don't know you, but have tea with me.
You call the police.
Yeah, I know.
Let's talk about what you do, because you started off as an investment banker, but let's talk a little bit about your life journey. You started off as an investment banker, but then you went into sort of coaching, personal development. How did you start that? I mean, banking, okay, makes sense, but when did
my life is all just a series of like happenstance and accidents. I mean, I was on maternity leave with my first child, and Citigroup, it was 2008, and the world was going to hell in a handbasket, big financial crisis. I had to make my team, 90% of my team, redundant. Citigroup's share price went from $55 to under $1.
Oh my God.
And at that point, they'd offered an enhanced package for people who put their hand up. And I'm like, pick me. And I kind of took the money and ran. And while I was, years before I had started, it was the end of the year, one year, and my boss was asking me, Susan, what are your training and development needs for next year? And I said, you know what? I'd rather stick needles in my eyes than do another options or derivatives course. And he's like, okay, what do you want to do? And I said, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to do a master's in corporate and executive coaching. And it was kind of like drop mic. He's like, what? No one has ever asked to do that before. Like, what's the business need? And I said, well, I have a big team. I think it'll make me a better leader. He's like, okay, if you think you have time. And I didn't really. So I never finished my dissertation. So when I left, I thought, okay, this is great. I'm going to finish my and I did. I finished up my master's in corporate and executive coaching, and companies were headhunting me to do what I did at Citi. And my first interview I went to, they said, "Well, what have you been doing since you left Citi?" And I said, "Well, funny you should ask. I just finished my master's in corporate and executive coaching." And they said, "Well, we need a coach." And I'm like, "Shut the door." And so, Elizabeth, I ended up getting my first job coaching before I even had a business card or a website. And then, fast forward 15 years. I wrote some books. I co-authored a couple of books in the Success University for Women, like looking over at my bookcase, the Success University for Women series. And I also wrote a #1 bestseller called The High Performing Woman, 52 Take Action Tips for Greater Confidence, Energy, and Impact. And now I have a little talk show with the same name. And so that's what I did for 15 years. And in the middle of all of that, I healed from breast cancer. And so what I'm doing right now is kind of a convolution of all of those things, like healing through breast cancer without the standard of care of chemo, radiation, or surgery got me really interested and passionate about true healthcare as opposed to the paradigm of sick care. So now what I'm doing is helping world-changing companies in the healthcare space, medtech, biotech, life sciences, pitch, present their ideas, and help introduce them to investors. So it's kind of using a little bit of my banking background, a bit of my coaching and presentation training, as well as my passion for this healthcare space. So it's a little bit like how Steve Jobs said, you can't ever, it's hard to predict things like where you're going, but, it's connecting the dots of your past that you can kind of make sense of things.
That is so true. And that is, the way it's like, I always say, even sometimes when you just do a little job because you have to earn some money while you're doing something else, whatever you have ever learned will come in handy somewhere. And I think this is
the people you met, or
yes, never burn any bridges, and learn whatever you can, even if you think it's useless, but it won't be. Somewhere in your life, it's going to come in.
Absolutely. Actually, you just reminded me of something that I was trying to learn Arabic when I was in Egypt, and we had a really foggy day, and they taught, and I don't remember the word now, but they taught me the word for fog, and I thought, okay, that's going to be a pretty useless word to know. But the funny thing is, when we went scuba diving, in the Sinai Peninsula, my mask was broken and it wouldn't unfog, and I just took it back and I used the word fog.
See,
I just learned the word. So I'm like, there you go.
Amazing.
Nothing's useless. Yeah.
No. I think that is a very good phrase. Nothing is useless. I wanted to ask you, is your book available on Amazon?
Oh, of course it is. Thank you for asking.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to put all this in the show notes. Do you have a website? I was, as I said, I just woke up before we started recording today.
Yeah. SusanTreadgold.com. Yeah.
So everything will
it's, to be honest, it's not updated. It's still, but it has a lot there. I mean, it has a lot
and
of contacts.
It's a way to find you. That's the most important.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to get in touch with you, because we're already quite far into with this podcast episode. Time flies when you're having fun. But before we end, I want to ask you, what is next? I mean, you had these cycles. You were saying already what you're doing now, but that may not be it yet. Do you have any dreams, dream trips, or dream things to do?
Oh, yeah, of course I have dreams. I mean, I think really it's just living out my core passions. I want to, my core passions are to generate abundant cash flow, helping others, doing what I love, create an epic love story, to have extreme health, and to be an amazing mother. So those are really my dreams, and those are the things that I'm just looking at manifesting every day. So
Your kids are growing up, and
yes.
they will be leaving soon. I think your son has just finished.
No, he's 16.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought,
But he's
okay.
a
So,
sophomore.
but again, soon in a while, you will be free. Well, free, that's not nice. We are, but there is a different life, because I have experienced that myself. Suddenly they're gone. You have two kids. I have two kids.
Yeah.
They're gone. And
And
then
it's really, I already feel like I'm entering that sort of legacy phase. I'm on the board of a charity, and I just, I feel like it's a phase of giving back in every way that I can, in terms of my experiences. And, that's really I guess that's what I'm excited about.
But one last thing, because I have recently, now I just remembered, I was interviewed by a magazine, and was talking about, they had all my information, and I was talking about what I do and what I still want to do. I'm older than you. And one thing that I said, because we have all this experience, and what you were saying, you want to share it, you want to empower people to do it. But I sometimes feel that they're not listening to me. It's because when you get older, people don't take you, I don't know, no, they don't, you don't want to say they don't take you seriously anymore, but sometimes I wish young people would listen more. How do you feel about that?
Yeah. Youth is wasted on the young, right?
Yes. This is so
I
true.
mean, I guess, a lot of the way that people learn is just through experiences. You can tell them, like you said, the man could have told me not to go into the pyramid, but I wouldn't have listened.
That is
I
true.
had to experience it myself, right?
And I think then you wouldn't have had this story to tell, and you wouldn't have had your first panic attack of your life. So it was worth it.
So everything will be okay in the end, or else it's not the end, right?
I think that's a very good way to end this podcast episode, because it's true. It's true. And life always sorts itself out, and your health is back. You are well, and that is the most important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being on Most Memorable Journeys today, Susan Treadgold.
I loved it. Thank you.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.